Greetings, friends. Thank you. As fall is upon us, we begin to see the changes in the foliage that surrounds us. In this Sunday service, we will examine our colorful UU composition, a composition drawn from a variety of our LGBTQ plus ancestors. I realize that I have encountered only a small portion of life's possible experiences, so I must look to others who have had different experiences to make my life fuller. That is what we will do in today's service as we look at our queer ancestors. I am Margaret Wozniak, a member of the Sunday Services Committee, and I extend our congregation's greeting to all in our sanctuary and to all of those watching us online. Thank you for beginning your day with us. Do we have any visitors today, or someone who hasn't been here in some time? Would you be comfortable introducing yourself?
Sure.
Standing up, and we'll bring a mic to you.
Hello, I'm Austin Jessup. I'm Phyllis's son. I used to come here a long time ago. It's our first time back in, I don't know how many years, over 10, maybe 15. And this is my fiancée, Brooke.
Hello, I'm Brooke Hawkins. This is my first time visiting.
That's
Welcome.
all. Glad to be here.
Welcome, Austin and Brooke. Do we have any other visitors?
Hello, I'm Jerry McIntyre. This is the first time I've been here, but my wife Natalie has been here many times.
Good morning, Jerry, and thank you for joining us. We invite you to come to the social hall at the end of the service where we might be able to welcome you in person. And if you can join us there, please take a yellow mug so we can identify you more readily. It is our custom to share those events in our lives that bring us joy or concern. If you have an event that you would like to have read later in the service, please write it in the book at the left of the sanctuary, and you may also light a candle at any time during the service. I share this writing by Dory J. Summers with you. Let us enter into the circle of energy and love. We are an inclusive community of faith and kindness, memory and hope. We are a community with a deep and abiding trust in the promise of goodness in every human heart and soul. We are a community of quest, where we gather to study and search. We are a community of joy and laughter, where the worth of every individual is celebrated. So welcome to today's service. We will now enjoy the prelude.
whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here with us this morning. I'm Reverend Alex. I'm the senior minister here at UUCGT. I use he and him pronouns, and things are going to get a little bit queer this morning, or maybe a lot bit queer. Welcome to our service to celebrate the end of Pride Week in our community and to tell the stories of some of our queer ancestors that have paved the way for Pride as we know it today. And so as we settle in together, I invite you to hear these words from H.P. Rivers, who is a queer religious educator and UU. Blessed are the wanderers, seekers of affirmation. Blessed are the worshipers praying from closets, pews, pulpits, and hardship. Blessed are the lovers of leaving family and familiarity, leaving tables where love is not being served. Blessed are those who stay. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. And blessed are the queer disciples of truth, living, breathing sacred reflections of divine love. So come one and come all, come and let us worship together. And so now is the time in our service to light the flaming chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and our faith, and also a reminder of the inherent worth and dignity, the sacred flame and spark within each and every human being. So I'll read these words as we invite our chalice lighter to come up and light our chalice. We have not lit the pilot light, so we're going to do a little bit of a different thing. The pilot light went out. So I'm going to assist you. I'm going to hold this, and then we're going to light it together. Does that sound good? We're going to light this flame right here. Right. You want to guide it? There we go. Thanks, Holly. And so our words are from Annie Dillard. We are here to abet creation and to witness to it, to notice each other's beautiful face and complex nature, so that creation need not play to an empty house. We now pause to light a candle in honor of National Coming Out Day, which is going to be observed on October 11th this year, in a couple weeks. We're a little bit early, though I think given our service theme this morning, it really makes sense in this service to honor National Coming Out Day. And so we light a candle to celebrate our trans and queer loved ones, to honor the gift that is their lives. We're having more trouble. There we go. We have light. So to honor the gift that is their lives, the gift of knowing their truest selves, and to give light and strength to all those who still cannot come out in our country and our world because it is not yet safe. So let us create a world together in which no one need be afraid of being who they are. And now let us sound our singing bowl and enter a time of reflection and reverence together. And now I invite you to please rise in body or in spirit as we join in singing our opening hymn this morning, number 1053 in your teal hymnals, How Could Anyone? And Anne-Marie, our music director, will lead us in singing.
How could anyone ever tell you you were less you join me for the children's benediction?
Thomas Rhodes reminds us that we need to make an offering, not only because the congregation needs our support, but because we need to remind ourselves of our own generosity. The act of giving something away is a tangible way of acknowledging the gifts we have been given. Our baskets have one side for the work of this congregation and one side for the work we do in the wider community. You may also give by using any of the methods listed on the screen. Your gift is accepted with gratitude and will be used with thoughtfulness.
Now is the time in our service where we join our hearts together to hold the joys and concerns that are on our hearts and in our midst, those milestones and moments of our life experiences that we just know we need to share with one another. And so I'll be sharing a couple that are on our shared hearts this morning. And if you have one that remains a bit too tender to mention in our service, you are always welcome to reach out to myself or a member of our congregational care team, or to just feel held in the love that is here for you. Nobody is ever meant to travel life's journey alone. And so if you would, please join me in holding on your hearts. First, a candle of concern for Nancy Frazier, who has been in the hospital now for a week after some heart and respiratory issues. She's not yet sure when she'll be discharged, and so please hold her on your heart and in your prayers. We also share a concern for Andy Kramer, who is sick with COVID. So please send healing thoughts for Andy as she recovers. And now let us just hold a brief moment of stillness for all of those joys and concerns that are also in the silence of our hearts. And as you feel called and willing, I invite you now into a time of meditation and prayer, finding a stillness in this moment for your spirit. And as you're willing, please join me as we breathe together, taking a deep breath in and out. Another deep breath in and out. I invite you in this stillness to think of a queer or trans friend, family member, mentor, or loved one in your life. Someone who is either still with us in this world or who has died and passed on. Take a moment to picture them in your mind's eye, their smile, their beauty, the ways they've been there for you and supported you. In this Soul Matters month of heritage, what is the queer heritage and inheritance that you claim, that you celebrate, that you are grateful to hold close to your heart? Spend some time thinking of this person and send out some gratitude and compassion to them in this moment. Thanking them for the lives they've led, the courage they've shown, the ways they've shown up in their wholeness and their fullness. Send some gratitude and thanks to them from your heart. And now, invite their memory to be with you, to inspire and teach you, to remind you that you are not alone, that you are not alone in the struggle and the work for justice. Each of us holds a great inheritance from those who have gone before us. May we be grateful this day and every day for those who create the paths we now tread, for those who break down closet doors, for those who nurture places of care where love is served. May we give thanks for these queer and trans ancestors. May it be so, and amen. Let us join now together in singing our song of response, Spirit of Life.
Today's reading is called The Invisible Woman, and it's written by the Reverend Gwendolyn Howard. She was the first ordained transgender person in our UU ministry. ordained in 1988, and came out as trans in 1995. In this poem, she reflects on the invisible woman she knew then, and she shares her experience of having to keep her hidden. Behind a facade, I hid my soul. I feared what others would say, and I feared what I knew to be true. But I heard you singing in 4-part harmony that everyone is beautiful, and I hoped that everyone included me. I wanted to join your song. I wanted to raise my voice with yours. And that's when I discovered that everyone doesn't mean all. You told me to be silent. You told me to go back in the shadows. You told me to disappear again. You said it was for the best if my soul remained hidden. Did I have some hideous Medusan power to harden the order of creation into ugliness? That is what I heard you say, and I believed you. I believed you for a time, but my soul's tears and its longing to live its own truth grew more powerful than any admonitions, than any fears. And I began to sing. A small, shaky, tentative voice at first. It was a small voice that could not and would not stop. As my own music slowly crescendoed with confidence, my hymn soon rang out. Enough, enough. I will step into the light. I will sing myself. The song of my soul will be heard. Though I could never raise my voice in your chorus, you can join my choir of glorious harmonies. And as I have been freed, so might you find freedom also. Not an easy freedom. It is born of pain and experience, of innocence and hope. Nevertheless, it is a divine oratorio. Yet our tune can only begin if you believe that I am just as beautiful as anyone, and that we are just as beautiful as each other.
So I'm going to start this sermon off with something that'll probably show my age a little bit, but I'm curious, how many of you have ever heard of, watched, or even follow an account on social media called The Old Gays? Raise your hand if you've ever heard of them. Oh my goodness, I'm not alone. This is great. I'm not the only one. This may be something more for millennials, Gen Zers, the younger folks in our community, but the Old Gays are a pretty neat account to follow on social media, if you haven't heard of them. For those of you who don't know them, the Old Gays, as they are known, are 4 gentlemen in their late 60s to early 80s that are famous for their work to bridge the generational gap within the LGBTQ plus community. How a lot of younger folks in the community don't have many connections with their queer and trans elders. So not only do they post videos that many find silly or humorous, videos that even some of you might find a bit risque, they also do a lot of storytelling about their lives and the worlds that they grew up in. When I first watched their videos, I was touched by one video in particular in which they talked about their experiences with losing friends and loved ones to HIV/AIDS. How a couple of them even continue to live with HIV themselves as survivors. I was brought to tears watching that video, hearing them share about close friends and even partners that they lost in the 1980s and 90s, that are no longer with us, a whole generation of queer and trans folks who lost their lives to such a deadly and callous virus. One of them named losing 80% of his friends, many of whom kept their silence about their struggles and never told him. I was moved with how special it was to hear these stories from these elders within the LGBTQ+ community who saw such pain and heartbreak at a time when HIV wasn't taken seriously as a public health issue, the ways it was seen as a gay disease or even God's punishment for the LGBTQ+ community. And so watching this video and hearing these stories gave me a sense of connection with these queer ancestors. Not just those who have passed on, but our living ancestors who are still in our midst, who continue to live their lives and inspire us. It highlighted for me how even as I have connections to a handful of living queer and trans ancestors and elders myself in my life, there's a lot more of this history that I don't know. Stories that I haven't heard and are important to keep on telling. So given our Soul Matters theme of heritage for October, also it happens to be LGBTQ+ History Month, I thought I would talk with you today about some of these queer ancestors in our own Unitarian Universalist tradition. Knowing our roots about those who have gone before us is so immensely important. And for those of us who are queer and trans, they are sustaining lifelines of connection. Connections to those who we still have in our lives, and also those who we remember. But for all of us, knowing this history helps to fully grasp and understand the challenges and sacrifices that many of our trans and queer elders have made to pave the pathways for many of us to be who we are today. This work is not finished, as there still remain places and spaces where it isn't safe for somebody to come out. Though I think after hearing about some of this history and these stories, you'll see just how far we've actually come. So the ancestors that I'll tell you about today, who you'll even get to see photos of later in the sermon, come from different generations, social spheres, and backgrounds. They represent a wide variety of identities and expressions on what it means to be LGBTQ+, especially within our own tradition's history. And in preparing for this sermon, I personally learned a lot about Unitarian Universalism's story with the LGBTQ+ rights movement. You'll be surprised to hear about how we actually haven't always been the tradition of radical welcome for our LGBTQ+ loved ones and neighbors. How there was even a time in our history where supporting queer and trans rights was unpopular and even dismissed. How ministers and leaders within our movement even lost their jobs or were told to seek employment elsewhere because of their coming out as LGBTQ+. My hope is that we can keep this heritage and history alive as we hear and tell these stories together once more. And I hope it also helps us to cherish the Unitarian Universalism that many of us know today, the church of radical inclusion and the wide embrace, the religious association at the forefront of LGBTQ+ issues in our present time, one of the few faiths that openly ordains queer and trans clergy, something to really celebrate. But before we dive into our queer UU history, we need to first cover some other LGBT history as a primer. Many regard the uprisings at the Stonewall Inn in New York City's Greenwich Village to be the catalyst of the LGBTQ+ rights movement, and Jeff has even found a photo for us of the Stonewall Inn as it exists today. How many of you know about Stonewall and what happened back in 1969? All right, keep your hands up. Who's actually been able to visit? Okay, well, I see a couple hands. That's excellent. So Stonewall is an important moment because it inspired a whole wave of rebellions of queer and trans folk for 5 whole nights as they clashed with police. This was a time when it was actually criminal to be homosexual, using the language of the time, or to even run an establishment that was made for homosexuals. Remember that history itself rhymes, and we're still seeing how criminalizing queer and trans lives continues on, even in our country and our society today. But back to this time, many gay bars and establishments actually operated without liquor licenses. They weren't able to seek legal approval, which allowed for law enforcement to make regular raids on known bars and clubs. The Stonewall was being raided about once a month up until the uprisings on June 28, 1969. And at this point, the patrons actually fought back against the police brutality and the rampant raids, a rebellion led by many Black and brown queer and trans folks. The names of Marsha P. Johnson, a Black trans activist and drag queen, and Storm DeLavier, a Black drag king and butch lesbian, are cited as some of the ancestors who said, "Enough is enough." Although this was pivotal for the LGBTQ+ rights movement, so often these stories become lost or even underrepresented. There's sometimes even a whitewashing of this history, where we don't give credit to the Black and brown leaders who started it all, and some of whom even gave their lives. So before we get into our queer and trans UU ancestors, that's the first piece for you to know, that there's a lot of this history that isn't always shared or told. And this history even went to inform some of our own ancestors as well. So the first queer ancestor from our UU history that I want to tell you about is Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. And we've got a photo of Frances here. You might have heard me say her name before in a couple of other sermons. Frances was an abolitionist, a suffragist, an activist, and a poet who is celebrated as the author of the first short story published by a Black woman in the United States. This was back in 1859, and I think that is pretty darn cool. What's also really cool about her is that she was a Unitarian in our history, and she was also an early Black lesbian writer herself. Though she married a man named Fenton Harper, she was friends with many Universalists and Unitarians who were also involved in the work of abolition and women's suffrage. Suffragettes like Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, both of whom were affiliated with wider Unitarian and Universalist circles and who wrote about their attractions to women. But what's special about this ancestor in particular is her profound voice. Throughout her life, she was deeply dedicated to the cause of abolishing slavery, and she hoped that one day Black communities would have networks of schools, newspapers, churches, and other community organizations which were on par with white communities. She wrote beautifully and extensively to the struggles for freedom and the lives that she and other Black leaders and abolitionists lived in their time in society. And so Frances's story shows us the power in using our voices, even when we're not sure we'll be listened to or even heard. So that's our first queer ancestor to share with you. Our second queer ancestor to share lived much later than Frances. That's the Reverend James Lewis Stoll, who was actually one of the first openly gay ministers in the United States. Jim, as he was known, is credited by a New York Times article as being the minister responsible for bringing mainstream churchgoers to gay rights. After his ordination to the ministry, he pastored the UU Church in Kennewick, Washington, starting in 1962. Jim served as the minister there for 7 years when, in 1969, as board documents later show, he was forced to resign as minister after his coming out as gay. Jim never served another congregation and was told by the UUA and other churches to find another line of work. It was unthinkable to UUA staff and to even UU congregations that a gay minister would ever be suitable to lead a congregation. That was your first mistake with me. Jim was both furious and inspired by Stonewall that happened earlier that same exact summer. His coming out was motivated by his decision to not live in secrecy anymore. In his own words and writing, if the revolution we're in means anything, it means we have the right to be ourselves without shame or fear. This ancestor shows us a pivotal UU figure who brought LGBTQ plus issues to the forefront of society. Jim challenged our own UUA to establish the Office of LGBTQ and Multicultural Ministries. Back then, it was called the Office of Gay Affairs. Oh, how far we've come. And this ancestor teaches us that we cannot live our lives to the fullest in secrecy, that we ought to be who we are, and that the freedom that we claim actually helps others to do the same. So that's the second ancestor, our ancestor Jim Stoll. The last ancestor I want to mention is actually an ancestor who is still with us, who is both alive and well. Again, our ancestors also include those in our lives who will one day also become ancestors, those who continue to inspire us and sustain us with their lives, living lives of loving support and courageous living. And so this ancestor is the Reverend Sean Parker Dennison, the minister of Rogue Valley UU Fellowship in Ashland, Oregon. Susan, Leah, wherever you are in the world, I'm thinking of you. She came from this congregation. She and I have talked extensively about just how wonderful Sean is. Sean is the first openly trans settled minister called to a UU congregation, the South Valley UU Society in Salt Lake City, Utah. This was only back in 2002. Sean also co-founded the network Trans Religious Professional UUs Together, called Trust affectionately, and it's a support and advocacy group for trans and non-binary UU ministers and other religious leaders. Sean is a minister who is still making history in our movement, and about 8 years ago, Sean wrote an article speaking about a recurring dream he had when he was younger, and a rather disturbing dream at that. In his dream, he was always trying to see himself in the mirror, to look and try to see his face, but despite how hard he tried and focused in, he just couldn't see his own face reflected back. One night, as he had another one of these dreams, he heard an inner voice saying, "Move the mirror, focus in on your face just a little more." And when he did, the face that he saw was, quote, tear-streaked and undeniably male. This was hard for Sean because he had been assigned the gender female at birth. This dream called him to make a challenging decision. Was he going to stay within the confines of his assigned gender? Or would he live a life that felt real and authentic, a life with integrity? Sean, this living ancestor of ours, shows us an example of living our lives as honestly as we can, choosing to live, love, and minister in our wholeness to the world just as we are. Sean is still a trailblazer in UU circles today, and he is somebody that I am truly proud to call a colleague of mine. There are so many more of these stories that I wish I had the time to delve into today. But the good news is that our UU movement has already changed drastically from the times of these ancestors, and I'd even add rather quickly. Nowadays, most UU congregations don't blink twice about calling an LGBTQ plus minister to their pulpit. I am here, aren't I? And in terms of statistics, we're seeing more and more settled non-binary and trans ministers in both congregations and pulpits. We're talking 2 back in 2017 and up to 5 actually in 2019. Actually, just last year, a non-binary friend and classmate of mine from Harvard Divinity was called to a settled pulpit also in Salt Lake City, showing this amazing momentum of change within our own UU professional ministry. And it really puts this all into perspective for me as a settled out gay minister. I'm grateful for how I don't have to think twice about who I am, and that my ministry is welcomed, celebrated, and fully embraced. We need to keep making space for others to bring their ministries and their fullest selves to our communities and congregations, and we need to remember that our work is not done. So to close, I want you to remember these stories and these folks to connect with these trans and queer elders of yours who continue to call our lives and call us toward courage, honesty, and wholeness. If you are queer or trans yourself, whether you're still in the closet or even still discovering who you are, I hope that you'll see just how many others have gone before who want a world in which you are free to be you. For those who are receiving this message in whichever form, for whom it's still not safe to be out, I hope that you'll find ways to claim this proud lineage and inheritance that you come from, this unbroken line of leaders and ancestors who are with you in both memory and hope. I hope that you find tables of welcome in your life, the communities of chosen family that can hold you in the love that you deserve. One day, I hope to be one of those old gays with my own stories for future generations. I know I've still got quite a lot of time, and that some of you are also still beating me to it. I kid. But in the meantime, may we all be inspired by these ancestors to create spaces for ourselves and others to be the best and brightest versions of who we are. Let's endeavor to be and create that space together. And so I say, may it be so, and amen. Let us now pause for a moment of stillness. I appreciate the applause. Now it's time to get on up again and rise in body or in spirit, and to join the vocal ensemble as we sing in our closing song today, The Courage to Be Who We Are. Our music director, Anne-Marie, will actually take a moment to say some words about this song that we're singing, a special one for this service on our LGBTQ plus ancestors. And so I'll turn it over to Anne-Marie.
This piece was composed in the early 2000s in memory of Gwen Araujo, who was brutally murdered by 4 young men, 2 of whom, I should say she was a transgender young person. 2 of the 4 people that murdered her were former lovers. To all those who endeavor. So please join us as you feel so moved.
As we release the flame, let us hear these words from Alfred S. Cole. Go into the highways and byways. Give the people something of your new vision. You may possess a small light, but uncover it and let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and the minds of all, giving them hope, courage, kindness, and everlasting love. We release the flame so that it may lead us as we live in relationship during the coming week. Don't let the light go out. It's only out there.
As Margaret reminds us, the work is not done, so take note. And so in the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, in the spirit of these queer and trans ancestors of ours that we both claim and celebrate, may we be made ready to serve one another and to create the world we so desperately dream of. Go in peace all, may it be so, and amen. Before we close, I do have some very quick announcements. I promise I won't keep you here too long. But first, you'll notice that I'm dressed quite differently, from my usual attire. I'm wearing a collar today. I'm also wearing this lovely rainbow stole that was given to me on my ordination day. But I'm wearing this pink collar, this clerical shirt, because I'm going to go head over afterward to join our other UU friends who are out there at the big gay brunch this morning for Up North Pride over at the open space. So those of you that would like to come out and join us after the service, it'll be going until 2 p.m. today. And so I invite you to come out and show a presence for UUCGT, to be a friendly person that somebody can meet at our table, to maybe get to know more about who we are and this wonderful, inclusive community of ours. I have a note also that tomorrow is the last day that we have for an online Soul Matters facilitator training, and that is the only one left for the fall, happening tomorrow at 7 p.m. I've actually taken this training myself to become a Soul Matters facilitator. I found it very helpful and meaningful, and facilitator is honestly not quite the right word for what you do in a Soul Matters small group. Those of you that have been in those groups, I'm seeing some nods. Instead, you might think of it as being a person who just kind of holds the space. So it's not something that is really that hard or requires a lot of work, and there's an opportunity to get trained on how to do it for those of you that are interested. So if you're interested, reach out to myself or Susan Leo, who I don't think is here with us today, but I invite you to reach out and let us know, and we'll get you connected. It's tomorrow at 7 p.m. online. And another reminder that our UU friends who are coordinating our Safe Harbor outreach this year are tabling out on the social hall. Betsy, do you want to raise your hand? Out there at our doors. So go chat with Betsy out there at the Safe Harbor table if you're interested in learning more about this opportunity to serve our unhoused neighbors who need food and shelter. And also, one other, there's so much going on. One other thing to just mention, that we have the Starting Point program that we've been promising for so long now. We're actually going to offer it, Chris Lautz and I and some facilitators, and we're going to start the Starting Point program starting next Sunday, October 8th. We're going to have 4 different seminars on the 8th, the 15th, and 29th, and November 5th. We're going to skip October 22nd, but we're going to be holding those here from 12 to 2 p.m. after the Sunday service on those Sundays. And you can see the flash for all the most recent up-to-date information on Starting Point. It's really a wonderful way for folks that have been connected for a while to UU, or for newcomers who want to go deeper and learn more. It's designed for people at all sorts of levels on where they want to engage with Unitarian Universalism. And each session has a different theme. So if that intrigues you or interests you, reach out to Chris Lautz and myself, and any and all can come to one or all of these Starting Point opportunities. All right, I'm all done now. I'll let you go. Go in peace and grow in love.